Hello, Michelle Dorer, Ashtanga Yoga, Outer Banks, North Carolina. In a very beautiful place. One of my favorite places on the Outer Banks. Beautiful spring day. There's a lot of herons out right now, so if you're lucky, maybe there was one out here just a second ago. So I discovered that that you can now post videos over a minute, so everyone's in trouble because that means I can talk more. I want to continue. I want to pick up in one of my video series, What is Yoga? Number 10. But starting with a fresh topic, I wanted to give a larger viewpoint of what yoga is, because I think there tends to be some confusion about that. So I would say, what is yoga is such a huge subject, but yoga is a path to self-realization, to maintaining harmony with oneself, inner and outer worlds, a way of unbinding the conditioned mind and opening up to more infinite universal energy, harmony, and love. And it's important to keep in mind that that's what yoga actually is, and everything else is really just a method. And there are actually 4 paths of yoga. In the West, we are very focused on one path and one thing, and that is the posture. Remember that even the posture is just a tool. So to explain this, I wanted to give a broader viewpoint of what is yoga and explain a little bit of terminology in Sanskrit. So path number 1 is called karma yoga. The word karma means to take action. And this is a path of selfless service, interacting with the community. I would give an example as helping with charity organizations, maybe through your church, or working at the soup kitchen, stuff like that. I always use Mother Teresa as a good example of a karma yogi. And all 4 of these paths, they say, are prone to people with different personality characteristics, because of course there's never going to be just one path that fits everybody. And the other thing to keep in mind is we tend to utilize more than one path, but there might be one that's our staple. So karma yoga is lent towards people with more extroverted personalities that want to be out and socially active a little more. And the premise is, if you take positive action, you may even be able to create some force against any negative actions accumulated in this life or another one. But that shouldn't be the reason for doing it. So that whole not being attached to the outcome that is in all paths. So that's the first. The second is bhakti yoga. This is the path of devotion, love, selfless devotion, surrender. A manifestation of this path is the kirtan traditions, singing to the Lord in whatever name that is, praising the Lord, giving yourself over to the Lord. And they say that this path is prone to people who are more of an emotional nature. And the third path would be the path of Gyana yoga. And this means the path of wisdom or mental discernment. And this path it's using the mind to overcome the mind, which can be very tricky. From what I've read, they say this path is for less people. It's usually less people are really prone to Gyana yoga. It takes a very strong mind. It is the path of wisdom. An example I use is, I think scholars, high-level scholars, professors, It's just tricky because it's easy to get caught in your mind if you're using your mind to overcome your mind. Because the goal of yoga is to go beyond conditioned thinking, the thinking mind. So, you know, it takes a very strong mind, but some people, that is their thing. And then that brings us to the fourth path of yoga, the one that most of us are more familiar with, although you probably didn't realize, for example, that you are doing karma yoga. Raja yoga, okay? The word Raja means king. And Paramahansa Yogananda says this is the king of all yogas, but no path is better than another. But the Raja Yoga path means there's an actual scientific experiential experience of yoga. It is the contemplative path, and it's prone to people who are more introverted in nature. Within this category falls seated meditation practices and what's called Hatha yoga. And I wanted to clarify what that word means. Hatha yoga just is a large term that means postures and breathing. So here's where we get into the asana practices that have become very popular in the West. And Raja yoga is amazing. It's wonderful. There is supposed to be an actual scientific method to experience Raja yoga, and what that method is actually Ashtanga yoga, but not necessarily Ashtanga yoga, what I teach, the lineage of Pattabhi Jois Krishnamacharya. I mean that word larger than that even, the 8 limbs of yoga, okay? So the 8 limbs of yoga is the method for Raja yoga, and the 8 limbs of yoga are recorded in the Yoga Sutras, which is my favorite text that I absolutely adore, and we'll get to that at the end of this video because I'm teaching courses on it coming up online. And this text lists the 8 limbs of yoga. And that is the 8 steps. And what the 8 limbs are, it actually is meditation. And so the first 5 limbs are known as the external limbs because they're things you actually have to do, like asana, posture, pranayama, breathing. But it should have, what really puts this method into being, in my experience as a yoga practitioner, is the withdrawal of the senses. Pratyahara, to withdraw the senses in, and then come the last 3 limbs of yoga, which are all different states of meditation. So those are known as the internal limbs. There are lots of ways to practice the 8 limbs. There is not just one way. I happen to be in love with the Ashtanga yoga method in the tradition of Krishnamacharya and Pattabhi Jois, but it's not the only way to do it. I love Ashtanga yoga because I think there is such a clear method for the withdrawal and the deepening of the concentration, which is the 6th limb. And that concentration develops into meditation, and meditation deepens into what the Yoga Sutras call samadhi, which means absorption, complete absorption. And that's where the union or the yoga happens. So I hope this video was helpful in explaining a little bit of terminology and also offering that what yoga is very large, and there's not just one way to do it. Even within one path, there's different ways of doing it, but there's different ways. As humans, we all relate differently, but it's really important for the planet that we try to stay in harmony with ourselves and with higher consciousness, higher forces in the universe as much as we can. I hope that this was enjoyable, seeing this beautiful place that I'm in. I am teaching a workshop through Ashtanga Yoga Raleigh on Zoom. I had to move that workshop to online. It's the weekend of April 25th. It will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There will be a lead class on Friday, Mysore Saturday, Sunday, and pranayama, Yoga Sutras, and we will take the Yoga Sutras deeper and specified into a talk on Saturday about the importance of surrender in the spiritual path based on Patanjali's teachings. So if you're interested in Ashtanga Yoga, Raja Yoga, and looking at Patanjali's teachings, I really recommend this workshop. For more information or to register for either partial or full registration, you can visit Stacey Ingham's website, Ashtanga Yoga School of Raleigh, AYS, Raleigh.com, or email her at info@aysraleigh.com. I'm praying that everybody is happy and at peace, and visit my website for information on my weekly Zoom classes, www.ashtangayogaobx.com. Namaste.